In this video, we're going to go through the summative writing for the metals, nonmetals, and metalloids lab. For the summative writing, you're going to be writing 3 sections, or you're going to be completing 3 sections of the report: the methodology, the data table, and the conclusion. So for the methodology, it should be written in past tense. You're reporting on what you did. You want to write enough where someone could read your lab report and follow your procedure and successfully duplicate your experiment. It needs to be written in third person. The section is not a step-by-step protocol, so you shouldn't have bullet points or numbers. And again, you want to summarize what you did in full sentences and well-developed paragraphs. So in my blank Google Doc, I'm going to start by writing my title for this section. Now there's 2 ways you can complete this section. The first would be to write it by hand, which you can absolutely do. And here's my procedure. I want to write maybe 1 to 2 sentences for each of the 4 tests that were performed. And you want to include names of the equipment that we used. But again, you don't want to just bullet out or number the steps that we did. Okay? You want to summarize. The other way that you can write this is using AI. Okay? Now, you're obviously responsible for the output, so you want to make sure that you are training the AI appropriately. Okay? So, let's start by asking it to write a methodology. Okay. Now, here, this is a very general methodology for a lab report. Okay, this doesn't even talk about what we did. So, the more information that you can feed an AI, the better it's going to do at writing it. So, I'm going to take the procedure, and I'm going to copy and paste it in, and I'm going to say, here is my lab procedure. So it'll go ahead and update. So I'm using ChatGPT. There are several other AIs that you can use. This is the one that I'm most familiar with. They all function essentially the same. Now, this still isn't right because we're getting sections that we don't want. There's way too much detail, and it's numbered. So I'm going to ask it to write in paragraph form, and we also want it in past tense. So here we go, and it put it in third person, which is great. Okay, now this is really long. Okay, and also sometimes you get fluffy sentences, unnecessary sentences. For example, all steps were conducted while following appropriate safety protocol and duty, including wearing goggles and aprons. Like, that's assumed. So I'm going to say condense. Okay, and again, it's going to rewrite it. And it's going to make it a little bit shorter. Okay, so you still want to make sure you read through this and check to make sure that everything in here is what we actually did in the lab. So for example, the procedure that I'm using doesn't actually reflect that 4th test that we did. We did not perform the acid test like this. We did it with the watch glass instead. So if you're just copying and pasting this, you aren't doing what the directions asked you to do. Okay, but there we go. So I could essentially copy and paste this into my lab document. For the methodology section, I'm fine with you using AI. Next section is the data tables, or data table. And in this section, you want to recreate the table that we provide, or that I provided to you for the lab. So to create a table, I'm going to go into the Insert menu. I'm going to go Table, and we want 5 rows and 4 columns. And then I'm just going to recreate what was on the sheet. So it looked like this. And what did we do? We did appearance, we did conductivity, we did malleability, and we did reaction with acid. Okay, and I'm just going to fill in some bogus data here. Okay, so this is bogus data. You don't want to use this for your lab because I just made it up. Now the other thing that our data table needs is it needs a title. Okay, so for our title, the title should reflect what's in our data table here. Okay, so if I just typed data table, that would not be good. We want to make sure that our data table reflects what's in our data table. So I'm going to use AI to help write a table, or write a title. Write a title for my data table. And again, the more information that you can give the data, or give the AI, the better it's going to do at writing it. So I'm going to copy and paste in. Here are the headings. And it says physical and chemical properties of unknown samples. Okay, that's okay. But you can give it more instructions. So write 10 more. Keep them short. And let's see what it comes up with. Okay, now when you pick a title, you want to make sure that it meets the criteria. So it's not so vague that it doesn't really describe what's in the data table. It should be specific to the data. So for example, sample identification data. That's very vague. That really doesn't describe what's in there. Again, you want to pick a title that represents what's in the data table. Okay, so that is our data table, and I'm just going to paste in a bogus title. I'm going to pick one that's not good, so I'm going to pick this one right here. So if someone's watching and just copying my video, shame on you. All right, now for the conclusion section. It says, this section of the lab report needs to be written in past tense. You are reporting on what already happened. The following words should not be used in a scientific conclusion. Proven, true, correct, unproven, false, or incorrect. Any conclusion needs to be supported by the evidence gathered in the lab. Your conclusion should be written in paragraph form rather than bullet points, so very similar to the methodology. It should be free of spelling errors and grammatically correct. Also, the emphasis should be on the lab and not the people performing the lab. So you want to use third-person point of view, just like you did in the methodology. Now, in the conclusion, you need the following to first restate the purpose. So what was the purpose of the lab? Well, we had 3 samples and we were trying to classify them. So I am fine with you copying and pasting my conclusion. The purpose of this investigation was to classify 3 samples as either metal, nonmetal, or metalloids. Boom, copy and paste. That is your purpose. Next, it says state your results. Which unknowns were metals, which were nonmetals, which were metalloids. It says reference the data table and use this data to support your claim. So, for example, sample A could be classified as a metalloid because blank, blank, blank. So you would pick what data from our data table supports that identification. I would do the same thing with the other 2. So sample B could be classified as a metal because blank, oops, blank, blank. And finally, sample C could be classified as a, I don't know, let's call this one a nonmetal because blank, blank, blank. Okay, so you obviously want to fill in those blanks with information from the data table. Now, I also made a mistake on purpose just to see if someone was copying what I was writing here, and I did not write my identifications in past tense. So could be is not past tense. So please make sure that when you write your conclusion, you write it in past tense. So what would be the past tense of identifying a sample? Okay, and that's all you need for the conclusion. So restate the purpose, identify each sample, and then provide some evidence from your data table to support your claim. And that's it. So only these 3 sections for this lab report. Good luck and have fun.